I get up in the morning and I'm just like, oh, just kind of shaking the stuff off. And I remember one of our early shows, you said the first thing we do is we check, is everything okay? And then, am I okay?
Does every part of our body still move?
And with me, it's like get the fingers going because I've had a birthday since we talked last. So
Well, happy
I'm
birthday, sir.
I'm dealing with not thinking about my age.
Well, I've had a birthday since we talked last too.
You have. That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. Happy birthday and
Happy
good morning.
birthday and good morning.
He's
And
Dewey Freeman. I'm Mark
and I
Sylvester.
am trying to
And
get all of my
and
hands
we're
going. Yeah.
exercising
All
something
9.5 fingers.
something that elders do. Oh, well, I've been thinking about um what would not what I want to talk about, but maybe what I think guys need to hear about, right?
Mm,
Because it's not about us, it's about our audience. And I talk about this show a lot to people. I was just at an event where I met people I have not seen in 20 years. It was
no kidding.
the old industry that I used to be in computer graphics has an annual conference every summer. This year it was in Los Angeles, and one of the old timers has a home just about an hour south of here, and he threw a big party on Thursday night, and I invited all the old dogs to the party, and it was really great to see people, but to see people 20 years later, and I just kind of found a chair and sat there for 3 hours, didn't get up and mingle and wander around. It was all outdoors. It was absolutely lovely. But I got to talk about this show, and
Mm,
and the room was full of elders. I mean, the property was full of elders, basically. And it got me thinking about capturing their stories, especially as it relates to the early days of computer graphics, computer animation, when we were trying to figure out how to get an image on the screen, how to record it onto film, how to
mm,
do layers of things. I mean, guys told me so many different stories because we had created software to do all of that, but it required running on the hardware that would work. And I met a guy who would he was a hardware engineer at Digital Productions, and he built the computers to do what needed to be. I was like, oh man, like it was fantastic, right? To do that. So it got me thinking about that period in my life from the time I was 30 until I was 50 was intense learning. Was like everything was new to me because I'd never been in that environment. But then we were also inventing. So everything was new because we were inventing things as we went.
mhm.
And since that time, so when I hit 50, I kind of jumped onto Web 2.0 before it was that. Feels so quaint now to say that, but that was 20 years ago. Because we couldn't do things, we couldn't read databases in real time, we couldn't throw a video around in real time, we couldn't do the kinds of things we take for granted now.
Right.
And again, here's another situation where I'm in an environment where I don't know, I don't know all, I know just a sliver. So I had to make a very calculated plan to learn, and
Mhm.
to dedicate time to learning. And interestingly enough, and this was the revelation, I just turned 70, and for the last 7 or 8 months, right? It's the 8th month of the year. So I'm going to say 9 months. I have been very actively studying AI and all the forms of it and having conversations around it and setting time aside a little bit every day and then chunks on the weekend to study it and learn it. And it got me thinking about how my whole life I've had a personal learning plan for myself. And I'm curious, do people am I just weird that way? Or is that a thing? Is that something as you're looking back, because I
Mm.
know you study and read, do you have I call it PLP, but a personal learning plan? Do you have something like that?
Do I have something that I would say is structured? Actually, not particularly structured. What I seem to have is I sort of have 3 or 4 avenues of learning that I pursue. Um, that interestingly enough, I'm constantly pursuing,
Mm-hmm,
and a lot of it is based on curiosity in those sort of avenues.
mm-hmm,
You
mm-hmm.
know, like avenues such as horses and horsemanship, and such as deepening my knowledge of therapeutic process, such as deepening my knowledge of nature and
Mm-hmm.
nature-based work, such as um, and one of my things, I mean, my first degree a gazillion years ago was mechanical engineering and physics.
Mm-hmm.
So, and one of my passions has always been flying.
Mm-hmm.
And although at this point I had to make a choice, either horses or airplanes, because I couldn't afford both, either time wise or financially. But it's been an interesting thing around jumping. I've found myself getting really curious again, or more deepening my curiosity around the actual science around flying. And I've also, another sort of paths would be all the neurobiological stuff. I mean, those and cultural stuff. God, as I'm talking here, I could probably list another 4 or 5.
Exactly. To my point.
But it's like, so do I have a plan? Not particularly. I don't have a plan where I'm going, okay, in 6 months, I'm going to learn this. But what I do is I have a constant curiosity in all of those arenas. The other thing that I've actually found really interesting is some of the arenas where I would not say personally go, oh, I want to learn about that. When I interact with my friends, and clearly you're right at the top of the list, is when you talk about AI, for instance, would I wake up in the morning and go, oh, I want to learn about AI? Probably not. But when you talk about it, I go, oh, this is sort of interesting. And so, I mean, all of that kind of stuff. So it's, and I guess, I mean, one of my questions to you maybe would be, how structured are you with that? Because I know that you tend to be a little more structured with things than I do. And you know, even one of my questions out there for the men listening to this is how much structure do you need? If you have structure, do you follow it? Do you do better just being curious? You know, there's almost like a whole continuum there, from one end being very structured to the other end not being structured at all. And you know, what motivates you? I guess that would be another question I would have, because both, what I'm aware of, Mark, is both of us are incredibly motivated.
That's true.
Incredibly motivated. So
I like to say, I take the moto part of that word and I look at myself as having a motor.
Yeah.
right?
Motorman.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
got a motor, and I will look at people, and if I'm meeting someone for the first time and I'm kind of going through all of the things, is this person a potential friend? Is this, like kind of all those kind of things.
Mhm.
One of the questions I will subconsciously ask is, do they have a motor?
Ah.
Do they have a motor?
So when you are doing that, what can tell you that they have a motor? What do you sense? What do you experience
They
or
ask
see?
good questions. There's a fire in their eyes. There's you can feel curiosity, I
Mhm.
think,
Mhm.
right? It's an
I'd
inner.
agree.
I don't have the gift of feeling energy the way you do, the way other friends of mine do. I didn't get that one. I got other ones. But I think I think it's something that's palpable. They've got a motor, or
Yeah, I agree.
they're just idling. Just stay with that, for a while. Yeah, or
Mhm.
they're too revved up, and it's like, dude, downshift. Can I get that at a 6 instead of an 11? Right?
Right, 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 right.
You can do that. Um, to the question of structured or not structured, I would say unstructured, and yet I have identified that I think a personal learning plan with a structure would have beneficial outcomes. Let me explain.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so either if you're like really intentional, I want to learn about a thing. So like with AI, I'm doing that. There's so much. I had to pick a lane, and then within that lane pick a sub lane, and just say
Mm,
I want to get good at that, and I want to understand how that works, and I'll do research until I understand how that works, and then I'll practice that thing until I feel like it's not new anymore and I feel pretty fluid in that. Right? It's just like with martial arts. It's not, you don't learn 10,000 kicks. You learn one kick and you do it 10,000 times.
mhm.
So that's how I go about learning the thing. However, 15-ish years ago, I had a friend who had an online computer training company. She has done very well, sold it, made a boatload of money. But in the beginning, it was teach people some very rudimentary things about computers. And you could get DVDs when DVDs were a thing, and it was DVD training. And then it went online, and then it just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I sat down with her and designed a way for people to create a personal learning path on her system. So you could say, hey,
Mm,
I can learn anything here. I mean, in here, I can
mhm.
learn anything. So the idea would be, well, what are the things you want to learn? And then it knows what lessons you need to take in what order. And then you take them, and it can keep track of those things. So that was really an intentional, hey, I want to be good at being a better manager, being a better communicator, being a better programmer, being whatever that is. And it goes, well, hey, here are the 20 different things that you probably want to pay attention to, even if it's just an overview class so you understand it, or it's a deep dive, right?
Mhm.
And then keep track, so you kind of know where you are along your path. So we never built that because she ended up selling the company and all that, but that idea has still been in my head. Now park that for just a second, because as I was saying that, it I think the reason I put it that way was because in my TED talk, See What You Think, I have there's three deals. One, I decide I want to do something, but then I
Mhm.
I dive in and discover. So that's the figure out all this stuff around AI. So I just don't even know the world, right? So
Mhm.
put it all out there, cluster the chaos. Okay, well, here's stuff that's around making images, and here's stuff around making text, and here's etc. And then make a map. So I draw a line and said, okay, where do I want to be here? I'm here, want to be here. What are the things I need to do to get to there? And I move things from the cluster onto the map until I've got everything on there. And I go, okay, let's go. Take a step, get going. So that's how I would like to. I'm going to make a conscious decision now to spend the next 6 months, the rest of the year, on the couple of things I want to learn and do it that way. So it's because then it's visual because I've got the map on the wall and how am I doing on that? Right? Did I get distracted? Did I take a little side trip? And now I'm over here and I was, I really, because that happens to us, right? As I say all that, can you see all that?
I can see all of that. And one of the things that crossed my mind is, and it's almost a question more than a statement, is how much do you feel like you need to know about a certain subject to be able to organize it like that?
Oh, perfect question. I go into it with beginner's mind.
So one of the things, for instance, if I were going to go into AI, and I don't even know enough about it to know where to start. Now, if I were going to go into, for instance, horsemanship, it's like I not only know where to start, much of it I could teach. And I could do that from a beginner's mind also, which I actually try to do. And maybe we should talk about that a little bit too at some point here, is what is the when we have a curiosity about something and we know nothing about it, how do you begin?
Here's an example. I'm really interested in something that's called organizational development. It's a thing in how to organization, how do you develop an organization, especially as you scale it. And I, for 20 years, worked with very large companies, and there was an OD person usually involved who was just looking at how's this thing scale. So here the perfect example is this. I go get a book.
We're dummies.
Yep. I get a book. That happened to be an easy one, right? Because I knew that the information was going to be structured in a way for someone who doesn't know about it. And I can read that book and you've heard the term, enough to be dangerous, right? Like, you know enough to be able to have an intelligent conversation, or rather to talk to the next person. So I think about it as, with martial arts, as a white belt, I stepped on the mat. I knew nothing. I was just going to surrender to the process. I knew nothing. And you with a good teacher, and the teacher can be a book, it could be the computer, it could be a friend, it could be, anybody who's going to be your Sherpa through that journey. I give me the white belt, then give me the yellow belt, then the green belt, and work and test, 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 until you get to the point of black belt in something. And then don't assume you know everything. Assume you know enough to actually now start. Don't not talking about it, but being about it. And I think that's how I've approached stuff. And what will happen is the need for the skill will come up when I'm in some situation where I'm trying to solve a problem for someone, or for myself, I go, oh, I don't know how to do that. And I'll either just say, I don't know how to do that. And I'll just, hey, I don't know. Or I'll say, I'd be kind of cool if I knew how to do that. Like I should know more about that. Like I want, or not should, take should off the table. I want to know more about that. That's why I bought that book. I will say, okay, I don't, as you know, I study improv. So I'm going to go, make sure I have the element, just the 101, the 201, the 301, the 401. Now I'm at, hopefully at 501, studying those things. But I kind of questioning the structure thing, because on paper, structure sounds like a good thing to do. In practice, I'd like to be better. I've been trying to be as honest as I can.
Right. So in the learning, and when you pick things, how much do you, I'm trying to figure out how to ask this question. How much do you go into it, if you do at all? How much do you go into it as if it were an initiation?
Probably not, because I have a bunch of meaning loaded onto initiation.
Okay.
Right. Well, I think of the initiation in Austin that we did earlier this year. So I've got a bunch of stuff attached to it. It's an interesting question because it adds a level of stakes.
Yeah,
that's what it does. It
part of
adds
what
stakes.
was behind my thinking is a level of stakes or commitment, or there's a something in there.
The thing about an initiation, there's a lot of things about initiation, but once you've committed to the initiation, you don't get to turn around. At least I've not known anybody who, once they started an initiation, turned around, said, oh, not for me.
Yeah,
Sorry,
there's not
wrong
much of a
choice.
reverse in it.
There's no reverse, right? You may get through it quickly, fair, right? And or it may take you a while to burn off. I always think of it as like a chalice and the burnt offering, right? You need to burn off a bunch of stuff to get down to the bare metal, right? To move on to the next phase of that initiation. And so I don't, while there is learning there, I think that's different than what I'm talking about. While we do learn through that initiation, but it's almost like I feel like that's an internal learning. We learn about ourselves as opposed to learning about a skill or something, though there are skills involved. So I guess it's pretty intertwined.
Yeah, I guess. And when I asked that question, there are times where I ask a question and I sort of have an answer. This was one that I do not have an answer to that. And as you're talking, what's sort of running through me is a process of, there's things that it's like, I can go learn X, Y, and Z. I can learn how to do a particular skill, like how to clean headlamps on a car where the plastic gets all so foggy that your basically headlights don't work. That's not an initiation to me. That's here's a skill.
Skill development, yeah.
or even a skill around
And I'm gonna
working with, oh, go ahead.
see if the trial by fire is a part of the initiation. Agreed?
Yes. Yes.
Whatever that means, but trial by fire is part of it.
Yeah, there's a struggle down in the
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
depths of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I would say that in all cases of my learning and all of the learning paths I'm on, there's a struggle in every single one of them. I'm looking down at the things that the various learning paths I am on right now. I'm on several.
Mm-hmm.
And there is struggle in every single one of them. And struggle doesn't mean negative, right? It just there's struggle. Like getting on the main stage in Chicago at the Annoyance Theater, doing a show was a test. You're testing your stuff, right? So I think that kind of constantly testing yourself and testing your knowledge and like did I learn? Oh, now I need to go back and keep working on that one a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's if it's important to you to be good at it, that's a precondition. I want to be good at this thing. So to be good at that thing, I need to inform myself of the stuff I don't know about the thing, stuff I know I don't know, right? I want to become I want to go from unconscious consciousness, going to go all the way back to one of our first shows.
Yeah, that was like
right?
2 years ago. Yes.
Right? To conscious,
Mm-hmm.
unconscious, conscious incompetence. Like I know I don't know, to conscious competence. Hey, I know I'm getting there. And that's, I think, where the testing comes in. I know I'm getting there because I passed the test. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I was able to talk intelligently about it with someone who really knew what was going on. Like, oh, I could hold my own in that
Mm-hmm.
conversation, right? One of the learning paths I'm on is how to be a really good interviewer. And this is kind of the business. If I'm in any business, it's producing shows, right? Being a showrunner on podcasts and stuff, and doing a couple of new ones right now. So I want to be really good at that. So I study that, right? I pay attention to that, pay attention to asking good questions and how do people ask questions. And I could reach over here and grab another book, the Big Book of Beautiful Questions, right? So there's all of that stuff, but it's not until you're tested, I think, that you go, oh, where am I? We talk about objectives, measure, and value. That's a core belief in how we look. Kimberly and I look at stuff. So the objective is I want to be good at this thing. The metric will be I could pass a test on that, whatever that test means, because I purely subjective. And then the value is I will know that thing at the end, and life will be improved in one way or another as a result. So in that regard, I am extremely explicit about setting an OMV of why do I want to start on that path? Why do I want to learn that thing? I have an outcome. I want to be good at that. Well, what would the value to me be of that? And how will I measure my progress along the way? So I'm going to, that's as much structure as I give it, but I absolutely give it that structure.
Yeah. And which I totally appreciate. As you're talking, part of what I'm thinking about here, well, there's two pieces. One is you and Kimberly teach storytelling. The 5 steps of storytelling there's a similarity between those and the steps of an initiation.
Oh, 100%.
And then the other piece is also, as you were talking, and is that in the learning piece and the personal growth plan, the piece that strikes me is the piece of there's certain things I learn that, I learned them and I can do X, Y, and Z, and I can follow a certain protocol. Those are not the pieces, though, that really affect me the most. The pieces that in my personal growth plan is learning something that I know from the inside out. That it's no longer a brain learning, it's a whole organism learning. And again, I'll go back, like someone can ride a horse and they can essentially be a passenger on that horse. You go out to a stable and someone will saddle up a horse for you and you get on and there's 6 or 8 of you that ride a trail and, it's fun. But it's people who are doing that way are essentially a passenger. There's nothing wrong with that. Please don't take that wrong, anybody. But then there's another level of that of learning something to the point to where it's in your bones, to where it's like, okay, I really got this, and that's the part that I would say, at least in my life, when I have chosen that kind of a path, and I've done that in various scenarios. That does feel like a level of an initiation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you're describing the feeling of unconscious competence,
Absolutely.
right? And yet you had to go through more than one initiation to become unconsciously competent.
That's a really good point. So you're literally talking about a series of learning goals, and at times, not always, but at times those
they're typically short and intense.
Yes.
And then you hit this wall, we'll call it the initiation, and you get through that initiation, you climb the mountain, you go, oh. And now you're on a bit of a plateau until you get to the next one. And okay, and it's life is a series of intervals.
Yeah.
When you were talking about the horse and the passenger, most people go into a restaurant and they are diners.
Mm-hmm.
I am an observer.
Yes.
I walk in, the first thing I do, anybody who's been out to dinner with me knows I go into the kitchen or get as close to the kitchen as I can.
As you can.
And I look around and I just see, are they having a good time? Right? Are they working hard? Are they having a good time? Is there a good vibe there? And I'm just looking and observing so I can sit down and then be comfortable and enjoy the experience, but I'm at a different level than just walking in and being fed.
That's actually really interesting. I'm loving that you just brought that up, because I have experienced you creating meals.
Yes.
And I'm saying that way on purpose, because I could, this is exactly what I'm talking about. I can get a cookbook and I can read the ingredients, and I can read something that says mix this, and this, and boil it for 3 minutes, and then mix it with this, and then put it in the oven for 20 minutes. And no one's going to die from eating that. Mm-hmm. And it may actually taste
might be good. Yeah.
When you are in the kitchen, you are a creative master. And when I'm talking about doing something from the inside out and something from it's in your bones, that's what I'm talking about. That is, it's like, and in all honesty, I don't know if you look at a recipe or not, because I've never seen you do that.
I do all the time, as it turns out, and it's mostly I'm looking for interesting combinations of things. I actually have
Right.
something called a food thesaurus, and I can open it up if I found something interesting at the farmer's market. Like there were eggplants yesterday. I didn't buy one, but I noticed, oh, there's a lot of eggplants. I would come home and open up if I wanted to do something different, I would just open up the food thesaurus and look at eggplant, and it would say all the things that are going to go well with this. And I'll go, yeah, oh, yes, there you go. I'm going to put a little something, something on it.
Right. But it's that competency from the inside out, that unconscious competency that I would look at a food thesaurus and go, okay, I actually need something to tell me step by step.
You didn't even know there was such a thing as a food thesaurus.
That is 100% accurate. I'm going, what the fuck is a food thesaurus? So that's what I'm, one of my questions to the men out there and whomever else is listening to this is, have you allowed yourself to dive in to something or a series of something that you have spent enough time and enough energy with that, whatever that something is, to have it in your bones, to whether it's literally, I would not say that you cook things. What I would say is that you create meals and nutrition for people. That's what you do. Could we call it a breakfast or lunch or dinner? Yes, we could do that. But you're really creating more than that.
I think about it as creating experiences.
Yes. And that's what you do.
Yeah.
The same way, could somebody do that same level with martial arts? Could someone do that same level with?
If that's what you do with horses.
It's what I do with
horses.
That's
exactly what you do. Because when we were in Austin, you didn't teach us how to ride. We never rode. You didn't teach us. You didn't teach us anything. You created an experience for us where we got to experience your mastery of the man-horse dynamic, to get a glimpse into what you can do. There was a picture of the possibility of the relational energy. Like I'd never seen anything like that before. Right? I didn't even know that was a thing. Just like you didn't know there was a food thesaurus. It's the same kind of thing,
accurate,
right?
Yes.
I had no idea. Like when you, the way you could energetically guide a horse, didn't know that was a thing. Did I learn how to do that? I tried, and but that's one of those minutes to learn, lifetime to master kind of deals, right? And when you can recognize mastery, you're like, so I think that's what happens is you recognize mastery. And then for me, I'll say, is that something I want to be a master of?
Right.
Right. And then, and I think that, which is why I like to mentor people, because I'm hoping that there was some spark that got them to want to, I want to do that. Right. They're young enough to where, okay, let's gonna take some work, dude. So, you got 10,000 hours. Great. Cool. Let's go.
That's it. And yes, exactly. And so if we wrap around to learning plan, I mean, what I can honestly say is, was there a point in my life where I went, oh, I'm going to put a stake in the ground out there and I'm going to be able to go down with Mark and Traver and a group of men and Michael and another whole group of men and do something with horses in Austin? That was never there. Was there something where it was like learning about nature, horses, and the nature of horses, and the nature of ourselves, and the nature of the land that we walk on? Was that unbelievably intriguing to me, to where it was like, yeah, there's something here that's big. What's an interesting piece, and if you will allow me to do this, is that what we're both doing with food or with nature and horses and land is that we're both providing nurturing and nutrition.
That's clearly an outcome of it. I was thinking that possibly in this case, predicting milestones isn't actually applicable. Having a directional vector is.
Absolutely.
And on reflection, I will see milestones. Yeah, I got through that. It's like, for instance, when there's a struggle around here, whatever, it's typically around work in one way or another. Not a struggle between us, thankfully.
Right.
But when there's a struggle, we go, you know what? There's a struggle. We're in the middle of a story.
Yes.
Right. Because struggle's the third S, right? What's setting ship, snap, struggle. And what's interesting is when we put a label on it, it defuses it.
Right.
And we go, oh, yeah, that's the struggle. Okay. Because we know we'll get through it and we'll get to where we shift our attitude about that thing. And so as I'm thinking about this, the struggle is, getting through a meal plan with a prescribed amount of time, because I know I have a hard out at a certain time and there are other things to do. And so I'm in my mind constantly value engineering my time. Okay, what are the three things I can do? So I'm doing all of that and it's not that I thought, okay, I'm going to work on my time management skills today. So I'm going to put myself in it. Just not that. Life did that for me.
Exactly. Yes,
yeah, I think that's our point, right? However, I think you could say I want to get a degree. I want to be degreed in a certain thing because I know that will help me in getting better jobs, right? Making more money or getting the social cred and the street cred that I'm going to need to be able to do my job.
Absolutely. And even that, which is an interesting piece, is that when you spoke about the idea of earning a black belt, and at the black belt level, that's the beginning of really learning to be a martial artist.
Yeah. And I did not know, by the way, I did not know that. They don't tell you that. And he chuckles when Grandmaster says, okay, so now you're ready to learn martial arts. Oh,
right.
Oh, I just tested 256 different things I could do. He says, great. Now you're ready to
learn to. Right. And that's the exact same thing I say with people, for instance, when they get their master's degree as a therapist. When they graduate, they're ready to begin to learn how to be a therapist. the exact same thing I say when people pass certain milestones with horses. Usually it's when they have come off a horse in a particular kind of a way that it's like, okay, now you're ready to learn.
So let's land this plane.
Yeah.
So as I know you're preparing to lead a bunch of men through an initiation in the last several weeks, you've been leading men through initiations.
Mhm.
And I was there through that one that we did in the spring. And as men are contemplating doing that, now you're ready to start being a man.
Yeah. And it's like coming out of the initiation is the beginning, not the end.
Nice soft landing there, Doc.
Thank you, sir.
I love that. I love you, man.
Love you too. Thank you so much.